Oh my fuck. Yo, Brittany, I am so motherfucking excited to be doing this episode of Swear to Drunk, because you know that I've been off for a solid fucking month. I was celebrating my birthday. I was having such a good time. I was hanging out almost every single weekend. There was just like lots of love, energy, just positivity, greatness, everything. And so, you know, to be able to take a break from some gnarly, you know, weird shit about some serial killer was, you know, it was good. I needed that detox. Yeah, there we go. There's the words. I still don't have words. I don't even know where to begin. I only have 10 minutes, but y'all, I missed y'all. Did y'all miss me? I'm just curious because like we're in episode 14 and I know that this podcast is very baby small and I only have a few listeners, but you know what? I fuck with y'all and I really, really appreciate every last one of you who listen, and I appreciate everybody who follows me on Instagram. I appreciate everybody who hit me up and was like, where the fuck is episode 14? I appreciate that so very much, and I appreciate everybody who celebrated my birthday with me and didn't, and just sent me text messages and Instagram messages near and far. I really, really appreciate it. Everybody knows, if you started listening to this podcast, I tell my business on this bitch, so I know that you know that I had been going through some things last year. So I put a lot of energy into celebrating this year. I turned 37 years old on April 27th. And, you know, it's just been a lot. It's been a lot of therapy. It's been a lot of playing around. It's been a lot of not playing around. It's been a lot of like just figuring out who I am. And this has been such a important journey for me. And like Sal said on my birthday, he was like, this is your new year. And I was like, this is my fucking new year. Cause obviously when it's your birthday, that's a new year for you. So I'm so grateful and I'm so overwhelmed, and I try so hard to keep my energy pure, and I'm discovering so many new things about myself. This has just been such an eye-opening 6 months. You know, it's been everything. And, you know, there's been very few stresses, but the stresses that have come up, I have been able to learn from, and I'm grateful for that too. So there's that. I also, you know, have been, you know, trying to like open myself up for relationships. You know, your girl loves being in a relationship. I love love. I've also been, you know, focusing on my health, which I told you all before. I do want to say I'm sorry. I probably should have like put in a little quick bonus episode to let the people that were expecting episode 14 after episode 13 part 2, letting people know that I wasn't going to do it. I posted it on my Instagram. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, I'm very sorry. I'm at Swear to Drunk Podcast. Or you can follow my personal page at Lavender Bordeaux. I don't have a lot of followers on my personal page. I'm kind of selective about who I add to my personal page, even though it's public, but whatever. So every now and again I go through and start deleting people, and, you know, the Russians or, you know, bots or whatever. But whatevs. I'm grateful. I'm tipsy and I had an edible. So this should be a very interesting fucking episode. I hope you all have been doing okay. I hope April was good for you. Chicago still isn't spring yet, but it's fine. You know, we'll get there. Get there eventually. We had like 48 hours of warm weather, and then after that it was like fucking January. I don't even know how to feel about that, but it is what it is. Writer strike. My industry is going through a writer strike right now, starting this week, so that's always delightful. I will be going on hiatus, so just to let anybody listening know that I'm taking applications for brunch, for rooftops, for boats, drinking on boats, for bike rides, and for sex. So anybody, that last one was a joke. That last one is a joke. I'm not that type. I swear I'm not that type. No. So yeah, you know where to reach me. My personal Instagram is at Lavender and Bordeaux, and spelled, not the ampersand. And my Swear to Drunk is at Swear to Drunk Podcast. I also, I look at both. I rarely look at my Swear to Drunk. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I get some hits here and there, but not many. I more so post on there for people to just see what the next episode is. I'm not that active. I was trying to be a little more active in April on my Instagram because, I'm semi-antisocial when it comes to social media. So I was trying to like post stories all the time and like kind of get people to, learn who I am a little bit. But if you listen to the pod, you'll know who I am because I have no problem telling you who the fuck I am. Okay, so we're in episode 14 now. Thank you for being patient again. Oh, a couple announcements. I'm going on break. I'm going on break from my actual paid job. So this episode is going to come out this week. I think I'm going to drop next week's episodes next week. And then after that, I'll be in the Dominican. So I will not be posting an episode that week of like the 19th. So there won't be an episode on the 18th. So I'll post both parts. So I'll do this part, which drops tomorrow, the 4th. And then I'll do the next part that drops the 11th. And then I'll be in the Dominican. I thought about taking my mic because I will have my computer. I may record because I actually do not leave the Dominican until technically I'm supposed to be dropping this episode. So I don't know. I may bring my shit just so I have it and then I can play around with just like popping in an episode real quick because I'm going alone. So it's not like, I'm going to be that busy. It's going to be some beachfront shit like at 100%. What are we drinking? So now this drink, this poisonous episode is called the Grimoni. So it is named this because I have a coworker by the name of Kevin Grimon who bought me some Amaro Nonnino, which is like an Italian Amaro. It's kind of like Aperol. It's kind of like Aperol. And it has like notes of like vanilla and orange and honey. So he bought me that to try. And when he was trying, and obviously he bought it too because he knows that I love Aperol spritzes and just to like try a different, Italian liqueur. He bought me this, which was supposed to be technically put with just traditional Prosecco. But he decided that he wanted to add a little zhuzh to the Nonnino. So he added gin and blanc vermouth. And we were in the office joking. And then, he was like, yeah, and I tried it and it was so very good. And then he named it something. And I said, why not name it? I just said the Grimoni because it's got Nonnino in it or whatever. So anyway, so that is what this is. It's not a cocktail. I'm saying it's not a real cocktail as in no one else knows about it, but you'll be the first person to try it. So go get you some Amaro Nonnino and then go get you some blanc vermouth and get you some gin or vodka, whatever you prefer. All my gin haters. I know I got a few. Your girl loves some gin. Gin makes you sin. So sip. Put that, sorry, I should probably tell you how to make it before I start drinking it. So basically you take cocktail glass or you can, have a little cocktail shaker, put a piece of ice in it, pour the gin, equal parts, 1 ounce of gin, 1 ounce of blanc vermouth, 1 ounce of Amaro, and then stir. That's it. Now, I will say I did add a little tonic because your girl loves her some tonic just to kind of water it down because I've already been drinking and I had an edible. So, good luck. Good luck on your first fucking episode back, bitch. I'm still on a high from my birthday. I had such a good time on Saturday. We went to the basement, which is dope. I had a section. It was fun and had a good fucking time. And again, I had been like kicking it every weekend. So I woke up Sunday and was like, I'm good. I will say I haven't been back in the gym. I kind of feel bad. And by gym, I mean my living room. So Next week, I'm going to get back to working out because this week I have another party and another birthday. Happy birthday, Dustin. His birthday's coming up. So I have a birthday to celebrate this coming weekend. So yeah, I can't imagine cardio before that. So I'm going to just chill until then. So anyway, let's fucking talk about the family annihilator. That being Chris Watts. Now, Brittany, how, why are we talking about him? Well, here's the thing. Typically how I find my topics is like, I will think about something that I kind of know some things about. And then I'll be like, ooh, I want to dig a little deeper into that. And Chris Watts was actually one of them. I think the first documentary I saw was the Netflix one. And that may have been when I was in like living in Georgia. So that 2018, 19, something like that. Me and my mom, we watched an episode, or we watched the Netflix documentary on Chris Watts, and was very, very surprised by just the plot fucking twist. Like, it just took a turn. But then when you get to know Chris Watts and when you get to know his wife, you kind of see it bubbling. You see it bubbling. You know, not to say that you're, by the end of it, you're like, oh, I see why he did like what he did. No, fuck that. Not that. But just the fact that you're like, this was kind of doomed from the start. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, I don't know if you follow my Instagram at all, but I did post on my Instagram because I didn't realize it until the very last minute that this was most likely going to be a part 1 and part 2. I should have known that in advance, low key, because if we're being honest, I was researching and I already got 20 pages and I was like, there's no fucking way. I'm going to get this in an hour and a half. And, I was thinking about it too. I was like, maybe I should get it down to an hour. Maybe that's why people like, I could like boost my numbers a little bit if it was a little shorter. It's very hard because not even that I just want to be thorough. It's just that I talk shit in between. There's so much information, and these are these people's lives, and it's not always like a span of a couple months. You're talking years, so there's so much information, and I want to give you as much as I can. And I also like to give you information that's not in the documentary. Documentaries tend to kind of gloss over some of the specifics. And I know it's because they look at it as minutia. We're trying to fit this shit into 2 hours or 3 episodes or whatever. So I get it. But because I read these books, a lot of the times these books kind of get down to the nitty gritty. So it's not until I start doing my summaries that I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to go a little deeper. So that's what I decided to do. I was going to, I had realized that I'd given so much information about his life before everything that happened that I was going to have to rush through the murders. And I just didn't really think that it was worth it to do that. So we're going to talk about Chris Watts. Sip. I'm so excited to be back. I don't even know what that means for real because there's like 12 listeners, but I'm still excited to be back. I actually enjoy doing this. This drink is good, Kevin. Thanks. All right, let's go. So, Christopher Lee Watts. He was a fucking Taurus. He was born May 16th, 1985. He's my age. He's a year older than me. He was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He was the second child to Ronnie and Cindy Watts. Now, Ronnie, his father, worked at Ford as a parts manager, and Cindy was a secretary and a notary. Chris had a very interesting personality early on, which he had apparently come by honestly because his father was kind of the same way. They were both very shy. Chris was very quiet and very reserved. He spent a lot of time with his father, whom he idolized. Chris loved sports. He would go to sports games with his father all the time. And they also really loved NASCAR. So they would go to all around like 200 fucking races together. Other than malls, I can't really think of 200 things that I've done with my mother, it's probably a mall. Yeah, it was probably a mall because we shop a lot. So he was also very well versed in NASCAR stats and trivia. NASCAR was really his fucking thing. Quote, he had a photographic memory. So this is a recollection from one of his teachers. And he could recite anything you wanted to know about NASCAR from memory. So Ronnie taught Chris how to be a mechanic, which apparently Chris was very good at. In school, Chris was pretty decent student, but he was better at sports. He attended Pine Forest High School and would become even more withdrawn, keeping to himself. And he hardly ever would go out with friends. He was kind of invisible. Quote, he didn't go out with friends, said his sister Jamie. She said, I was more of a social butterfly and he was quiet and interested in mechanics and cars. He was just a focused person. So Chris would enroll in an auto technology class and excel. I mean, his teachers would later say that he was one of their best students. He was incredibly quiet, but he was still really polite and courteous. You know how sometimes some people are quiet and then it comes off just like douchey and rude? He didn't really have that problem. Now, even though Chris never got down with a lot of girls, he definitely had many girls crushing on him at school because he was handsome, tall, and then he was kind of lanky, which, you know, most of my exes were tall, kind of lanky, and fucking, you know, handsome. Well, not all of them were handsome, but whatever. Now, people would say they never, ever saw him get angry at anyone, and that he was almost too easygoing. He wouldn't even hurt a fly. Have you ever seen the movie Psycho? Hitchcock? Yeah. That was a quote from the end of the movie Psycho. Whatever. He wouldn't even hurt a fly. Whatever. Okay, so his sister Jamie thought that maybe he was on the spectrum because of his incessant need to have things in order. And it was hard to get him to focus on anything but cars. Now, in May of 2003, Chris graduated. He received $1,000 in a scholarship to the NASCAR Technical Institute in Mooresville, North Carolina. Now, by that summer, Chris was on his fucking way. He was going to school 5 days a week. So his parents would start to help him stay afloat. Eventually, he would get a part-time job at Ford dealership himself. So Chris spent most of his time studying, and because of his job, he would rarely have the opportunity to come home. Ronnie, Chris's father, was so close to him that he started to fall apart. And so Ronnie was fucking sick. He was missing Chris. He missed him so much that he started doing cocaine. Now, here is my, don't laugh, that's not funny. Here's my opinion of that. I had a conversation with my mama because my mama was like, Brittany, I love you both, me and my sister, but I ain't gonna start doing cocaine for neither one of y'all. And I said, good. It's like, look here, I know you love me and I'm fucking great. We're both great. But here's the thing. Please don't do cocaine for me. Like if I fall off the face of the earth, like don't do cocaine for me. Don't be addicted to cocaine. I'm not saying don't do it because, hey, parties, but don't be addicted to it. Ronnie developed an addiction to cocaine. He would spend so much money on cocaine that at one point Cindy thought that he was having an affair. So the depression of losing Chris is what started this. And he started to lose weight and he started to have frequent nosebleeds. So eventually Chris would start an intervention. Oh, girl, it's your first episode. You can't even get your words out. Ooh, am I drunk? Maybe. Eventually, Chris would stage an intervention and Ronnie, he just quit. He just quit. He just dropped the shit. In 2006, Chris graduated with honors and found a job at a Ford dealership as a service technician. Now, Chris would end up disappointed because he was unable to nail a NASCAR gig, which is what he really wanted to do. He would only get one interview, and it just didn't go well. So his dreams were kind of shattered. Now, he continued to work at Ford, making a decent living for someone in their early 20s. I mean, he also found a little girlfriend who had been on the rebound from a messy divorce, which I'm like, in your early 20s, girl? God damn. All right, now. I forget, though. This is North Carolina. Okay. And bitches be getting married different. Because I'm like, yo, I'm almost 40 and I ain't got no married. Well, I got one married friend. I don't really got a lot of married friends, y'all. So it would eventually end when she started seeing someone else. And his cousin Nicole, would tell him to message this woman by the name of Shanann Ruzick. I hope I'm pronouncing her name. Her name is Ruzeek. I hope that works out. Who was also coming out of a bad marriage, which is like, huh? Can I just stop? I am one of those people that want to be married. I learned that about myself in this last month. I like men. I like being around men. I want to be married. That's all I got to say. So anyway, so he reaches out to Shanann and you know, he shoots his shot. Now let's talk about Shanann. So Shanann Catherick Ruzick, I really hope that's right. She was born in Passaic, New Jersey. I also hope that's right. On January 10th, 1984, to Frank and Sandy. She was the oldest and had a younger brother by the name of Frankie. So Shanann was a very smart and extremely bubbly girl. But unfortunately, she was one of those children that spent a lot of her childhood sickly and in the hospital. She was having migraines as a baby, which I'm like, huh? I didn't even know babies had migraines. I didn't even know. At first, when I read it, I was like, how the fuck they find that out? But they only found that out because she was having brain surgery. I didn't look into that any deeper because that's one of those things that kind of make my teeth hurt. You know how some things make you uncomfortable and it makes your teeth hurt? Maybe that's just me. But I was like, I don't want to know. But I really didn't know that babies got migraines. But they were so bad that she needed pills and injections. Now, her and her brother were very close. I mean, Frankie would become her protector because she was being bullied at school. She was miserable at school. In 1999, the family would head off to Aberdeen, North Carolina to find work. Now, Frank would eventually start his own home improvement business while Cindy was working in a hair salon. Shanann would enroll in Pinecrest, which was an art school. She would actually join the theater class and develop a strong relationship with her teacher. Eventually, she developed the confidence and friends, and she would use theater as an opportunity to shed her old image and become more confident. So people said that Shanann was the sweetest person. She was versatile, too. She would act. She would help out as a stagehand. I mean, she would literally run an entire backstage production of Little Shop of Horrors for her theater group. She would even paint the sets and act as craft service. She volunteered for shit and joined clubs. I wish I was one of those people. I'm just like way selfish. But the more friends she developed, the more she engaged in social activities. That makes sense. And then that gave her an opportunity to hide her ailments. So she wasn't really telling everybody everything that she was going through. So over time, she would eventually find a job at Vito's Pizzeria in Pinehurst. Now, she found herself spending a lot of time with her theater teacher, who was 25 years old. I should say that that's kind of weird. And she found herself telling him a lot of her family business. Now, for some reason, she told him her parents were in a bitter divorce, but they actually never were. I don't know if this was in an effort to seem more interesting or what, because I feel like over time, that would be an easy enough thing to be caught in a lie about. I don't know. But they actually are still together. So I don't know why she did that. Even when I was thinking about it, I was like, why would she lie to him? And at a young age, some people lie about shit to make themselves seem more interesting. I don't know. Now, quote, she told me she didn't get a lot of attention from her dad that I know she wanted. Recall Francis, that was the teacher. I think there was a lot of hurt and frustration in the divorce. I mean, it was pretty fresh. Now, eventually, the principal had to get involved because she was spending entirely too much time with her teacher. And even though they gave her a new counselor, she continued to go to him. Can I just say that whole situation is like hella sus? Because, look, I've been trying to learn a lot about attachment styles. Okay. Because, I got that problem. I got a problem with attachments, but, you made up a scenario where you were kind of the vulnerable child with the dad that never showed you a lot of attention. And then you, attached yourself to a 25-year-old teacher, who young, I mean, it's not like he's in his 40s or 50s or even 30s, but the fact that you all spent that much time together, the relationship feels a little sus. The only way, and I'm gonna just say it, the only way it's acceptable is if the teacher was gay. But check this out. He would eventually leave the school to get married. Now, gay marriage did not exist back then, which tells me that he was rocking with a woman. He could have still been gay, but I'm just saying the situation is sus. And while I was in high school, I definitely experienced some situations where teachers were sleeping with their students. And that's all I'm going to say. I don't know if that was the case. I don't know, but it reads weird on paper. She wrote a letter to him saying, quote, "You have been like a father figure to me," she told him, "even more than my own father." It's weird. Now, by senior year, Shanann had moved and started dating a guy by the name of Leonard King. And she was incredibly determined to start a family. So she married him. Leonard would join the army so he can go to law school. And Shanann, she started college. Now, she would eventually drop out and start selling cell phones and pagers. She would not complete college. And during this time, her marriage was in the toilet, even though she dropped out to take care of him so he can go to law school. So Shanann was climbing at the cell phone store, becoming manager of the store. And this store was in Fayetteville, North Carolina. She would eventually become an accountant at a custom body shop, which had clients like rappers and athletes. And she was driving a custom Cadillac Escalade for work and making some pretty good moves for herself. Eventually, she would stop coming home at night, which, if we're being honest, she was sleeping with other men. Because, I mean, it was like, why you ain't coming home? Ain't no, what else you doing at night? You work at a custom body shop. They got hours. What else you doing at night? Because she also refused to tell him like where she had been. They tried counseling, but nothing. Shanann didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. She had kind of just given up. So she divorced him. And then she moved to Charlotte, where she started taking psychology classes at Queen's University. Now, she would later say, quote, "I went through a really awful divorce, and that relationship took a lot from me. It literally took everything. I had to start financially all over," end quote. Now, she's 23 years old at this point, and she's newly divorced. Now, this depressed her. So to make herself feel better, she does what everybody fucking does. She built a house. Yeah. Welcome to the South. Because let me tell you something. At 23 years old, you're not about to build a house in Chicago. You're just not. It's kind of like Georgia. Georgia's still kind of like that. You can fucking build a house for $300,000. Market may be a little different now, but there was a period where you could build a house in Georgia for like the price of a fucking 1-bedroom condo in Chicago. She would buy the land to build a house so she could resell it someday. Very forward thinking. And so she signed a $300,000 mortgage to build a mansion in Lake Wylie, which is a suburb in Charlotte. Now, by May 2018, Shanann was building her house at 25 years old. I said 2018. It's not 2018. It's 2008. So you got this girl who is basically a baby child. She built a 4,000 square foot fucking 12-room mansion. It had 4 bathrooms, 4 bedrooms, a balcony with views of the lake, and a fuck. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. Because I keep thinking, I'm like, yo, Brittany, what are you doing with your life? God damn. This girl is 25 years old. She just built a 12-room mansion. How? How did we make it? How did we get there? Like, how did we get there? Like, how? Like, okay, let me think about this. What was I doing at 25? That would have been 12 years ago. Definitely wasn't in a financial position. Oh, I had just joined Chicago Fire in 2012. So for me, that I was so focused. I had such shitty loans that there was no way, like school loans, there was no way that I was, you know what though? Because if she was born in 84 and at 25, she built the house, that's actually 2009, which would be after the housing crisis. So she may have came up on that land. You know, I'm sorry. This is like very stream of consciousness at this point, but I'm just trying to look at my life and my choices and try to figure out why somebody who's basically my age building a 12-room mansion. Whatever. I should have thought about that when I was researching. I don't really got no commentary on that. I'm just jealous. You know, that's pretty much what it boils down to. So anyway, so she buys a 12-room mansion. Now, she builds a 12-room mansion. Now, after construction of her home, Shanann fell ill and she started to lose her hair and she started gaining weight and she was like suffering from like fatigue. And then she just felt terrible most days. She went to the doctor and she found out that she had lupus. Now, she would later go for a second and third opinion, only to find out that not only did she have lupus, she also had fibromyalgia, which I'm sure we've all heard commercials about. But according to the CDC, fibromyalgia is, quote, a condition that causes pain all over the body, sleep problems, fatigue, and often emotional and mental distress. People with fibromyalgia may be more sensitive to pain than people without fibromyalgia. And this is called abnormal pain perception processing. Fibromyalgia affects about 4 million U.S. adults and about 2% of the adult population. The cause of fibromyalgia is not known, but it can be effectively treated and managed. Women are actually more likely to get it than men, and most commonly affects people much, much older. Now, she would have to take medicine, and with the medicine, she would gain more weight. She would quit the custom body shop because she just couldn't manage the stores anymore. She was managing 2 of their stores. And in July of 2010, when Shanann was at her lowest point, she got a message on Facebook from Chris Watts. Now, after 2 weeks, Chris Watts and Shanann, they link up for a movie and dinner. It wasn't much of a spark but they continued to date, which I think we've all done that, right? Where it's like, this person doesn't really seem like a bad person, so I'm going to keep going out and see, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I should talk to my therapist about that. I kind of feel like that's a part of dating though. Cause like you can be in a situation where you're like, I don't find this person attractive. I'm not saying that that's what Shanann felt, because Chris was apparently incredibly good looking, but you could not find a person attractive, but there's something about them that you fuck with. And then you're like, so I'm gonna just see how this plays out. It's like, you don't know until you know type of thing. In my spirit, it also just kind of feels like you're trying to make fetch happen. You know what I mean? It's just like, well, if I don't like this motherfucker, I don't like this motherfucker. But sometimes it's like, you may not like a person on impact, but that doesn't mean they're not a good person. Sometimes you just need a little more time. And that seems to be what she did with Chris. There wasn't much of a spark, but they continued to date. And Chris would even comfort her when she would have her lupus flare-ups. Shanann and Chris were starting to really grow on each other. And she would even return to her job at the custom body shop part-time. Now, here's the thing about that. Apparently she had a really violent lupus flare-up, and he let her lie on his lap. And she had apparently fallen asleep, and she had slept for hours, and he had not moved. Is that a red flag or is that a green flag? To each his own. I'm just curious, because to me, it's like, nigga, you ain't have to go to the bathroom in this 3 hours. I get you don't want to disturb me, and that feels mad respectful, but I would be like, that's just not a human response to just sit somewhere. I guess he could have just been like, you know what, I'm gonna turn on Citizen Kane. Boom. I'm going to turn on Godfather. Boom. I'm going to turn on Scarface. 3 hours. Sit here. Not drink. Not pee. Not cough. Not wake her up. I guess that's likely. But the way it kind of when I saw it, I watched it on a documentary. It was mentioned that he kind of just didn't sit there. And also I'll link the book and the documentaries in the show notes per usual. So I read this book called The Perfect Father. So yeah, whatever. You're not going to read it. So she quit. So she returns to her job. She returns to her job at the custom body shop part-time because she's deathly ill. And then she started a photography business, which is who fucking knows? Shanann is just a different type of woman. She then started doing nanny work. So Shanann was truly a fucking hustler. I mean, she apparently also really loved children. She was just good with children. She was good at her business, and she was good at just connecting with people. Now, here's the thing. She started to really rely on Chris, who she had to, she had him help her do pretty much everything. I mean, he would organize her pill box, which I'm like, are y'all 90? And then he would take her to appointments. Now, she could have fallen for him because of him, or she could have fallen for him because she realized that he was incredibly easy to control. Because I'm not saying that a doting husband is rare or a doting boyfriend is rare. But a doting boyfriend can sometimes be rare. And I'm saying that because I'm saying just men aren't that thoughtful. And I'm sorry, but they're just not. And so I think this is a perfect storm of personalities. I don't know, but this didn't really feel all that genuine to me from the beginning. It's like, oh, he's willing to do things for me. Fuck it. You know what I mean? Which women fall into that all the time, where they end up dating people based off what they can do for them. And so Chris would eventually move in with Shanann and give Shanann his money for safekeeping. And by the end of 2010, they were together and posting it online. So they were online official. Now they decided to get the parents involved as well as Chris's sister, Jamie. They had this dinner at the house because Chris insisted. But things didn't really go well. The mothers didn't get along. Cindy didn't know how outspoken Cindy didn't like how outspoken Sandy was, and probably because she's from Jersey. I mean, remember, what's her name's from Shanann is from Jersey. Now, Cindy didn't understand how Shanann was able to afford so much without a full-time job, which was like same, but it's kind of in poor taste to pocket watch. I mean, you don't know her life. You don't know her family. Jamie was thinking that there were some shady dealings going on. So I do understand how that would create some tension. Shanann's parents didn't like that they were assuming that Shanann didn't come by her money honestly. And so things got tense. Sandy would say that her house was nice because she comes from a family of contractors. She's like, of course her house is nice, which is a valid point. Now, the odd part too was that Chris's mother, Cindy, and Shanann's mother, Sandy, would continue to have this beef. One reason being, Cindy did not believe that Shanann loved Chris. I mean, they would never really like each other. And by Christmas, Chris was not spending time with his own family for the holiday. For the first time, they spent it at Shanann's parents' house. They also didn't spend New Year's Eve with his family, but instead spent it at Shanann's brother's house. Now, Shanann was the dominant one. Very obvious. Chris would do anything she asked him to. Chris would literally never show any emotion, which is a huge sign of something being a little mentally off. You know what I mean? Like, he was too willing to accept whatever Shanann wanted from him. By August 2011, Chris would ask Frank if he could marry Shanann, and they welcomed him with open arms. Shanann would meet a couple in Colorado who would convince her to move to Colorado, and she had also felt that the air would help with her illnesses, you know, the high pressure, the cold weather, because she had a muscular issue and then she had lupus, which, you know, there's some truth to that. So she hired a realtor and she started looking into properties. Now, Chris's mother was not happy about the move, and rightfully so, because it made her feel like Shanann was trying to take him and move him further away. I mean, because sure, you know, she could be moving to a place like Colorado for her health, but there could also be, both of those things could happen at the same time. She could be like, fuck your family and I want you to myself type shit too. I don't put that past personality types like Shanann. I'm personally controlling in a different way. I wouldn't want to take a person away from people that love them. That's just my feeling. And the only time, and in my experience, the only time people want to take you away from people that love you, that do not abuse you, is when they want to manipulate you in peace. So there's that. Now, Shanann and her mom planned the engagement party because, of course, he's like, I want to marry her. I love her. You know what I mean? Like, it's a whole fucking thing. And the only job that Chris's side had was that his sister was to order gluten-free menu items and send out invites. That was the only job. Then, of course, she didn't do that right. And they blamed Jamie for 80 invites not going out. And then the gluten-free items that were being ordered were apparently not items that Shanann could eat, because I guess Shanann was gluten-free. At the engagement party, Shanann and Cindy would get into an argument when Cindy accused her of turning him against his family, which in a way, I do not think Cindy is wrong, because it comes, if you didn't mean it, that's one thing, but it definitely comes off that way. I also feel like Chris is a grown ass man. So he needs to speak the fuck up, you know? To have this bickering back and forth and have a man standing there that is just like quiet. If I was Cindy, I would have probably slapped the fuck out of my son before I got in to Shanann's ass. You see what I mean? Like, what the fuck is your problem? You know us better than she knows us. Explain to her who the fuck we are. You know what I mean? Like, that would have just been my opinion of it, but whatever. After the party, though, Chris would break off all contact with his family and told them to leave him alone. Easily manipulated. Quote, he wouldn't even talk to us anymore, said Cindy. Shanann was very controlling and he was in love and there was no talking to him, and it frightened me for him. Now, Shanann was actively trying to sell the house by April 2012. She was in North Carolina while Chris was looking for a new job in Broomfield, Colorado, where he stayed with their Colorado friends for 6 months. He eventually ended up working at another Ford dealership, and then he would start saving a lot of money and focusing on the grind so he could help build the life he and Shanann wanted. Now, mind you, Shanann is talking to him the entire time he's in Colorado without her, and she tries to convince him to get online and get a degree in communication, which is interesting considering she doesn't have a degree either. I mean, this was likely to keep him focused so he wouldn't cheat on her. That's kind of the assumption. Which I get. You got a whole boyfriend that's good looking, that's just like sitting in Colorado for 6 months. He's probably going to run into some pussy that he could be interested in. Just saying. Especially at a place like Ford. Zing. No, I'm just, if you know, you know, whatever, shut up. Now, ironically, as part of his assignment in class, he had to deliver a speech on relationship deterioration and repair, where he says, quote, the relationship begins to fall apart, crumble, or fail, he told his audience. You have weakening bonds. You get bored with an everyday routine. Even at the job, you might meet a new person and it could strengthen into something else and weaken the bond you have with your partner. He then moved on to interpersonal deterioration and growing apart from your spouse. Quote, you have more awkward silences at dinner. You disclose less of your feelings and show less affection towards each other. End quote. Watts told his audience that everyone in a relationship must eventually ask if he or she has the desire or moral obligation to stay in a relationship or if it is a necessity. Quote, according to my research, sometimes the necessity can be children. Sometimes when your relationship starts to deteriorate, a child could help repair it. He then described 2 different types of deterioration, sudden or gradual. Quote, sudden would be infidelity. If someone is not faithful to their partner. Gradual would be if you meet someone at work and as it goes on, you see that, okay, maybe this relationship has more potential than the relationship I have with my partner. And that will gradually push the old relationship out and push the new relationship in. Through his research, he told his audience it was the more attractive one that usually leaves. Repair is not an option, and they want to get away and start anew. Chris ends his presentation by saying, I'd like to say that relationships are hard, but they're worth it in the end. And as the Swedish proverb says, a double joy is a shared joy, and a double sorrow is not a shared sorrow. Thank you. Let me talk about this for a minute. I posted on my Instagram that one thing that I do not understand. I posted 2 things on my Instagram. One thing I posted today, the other thing I posted a couple weeks ago, regarding why people decide to kill people instead of just saying that they want to leave a relationship. And the other thing was, why lie? I'm not saying that people can't lie, right? People lie all the time. I've lied. I'm not past that. I try desperately to not lie. And I also try incredibly hard to be as authentic as I can so people can understand how I feel. And there are moments where I fail, because nobody's perfect. But then there's also moments where it's like, okay, maybe it's best, even if I failed the first time, to clear it up. Personally, I feel like if you are in a relationship and your relationship is not in, I'm sickeningly monogamous. I don't cheat. I have been in situations where I've been in a relationship and was interested in somebody new. And what that would mean is that I would have to end the previous relationship. Right. That's just how I roll. But then there is the issue that we've seen so many times where people are in relationships and they want to do both. They want their cake and eat it too. You want to stay with your wife, but then you also want to have this other life with your other person. And it's not even just because you want that wife or girlfriend to stay there. It's just because you don't know how to say it without hurting that person. And I don't know that this is something that works with everyone, but I'm going to tell you that this is what works for me. And this is just what I truly feel personally. A woman can get over what you've done to her if she knows that you told her the truth. The pain that comes with the truth is temporary. What is painful to me is finding out that you lied. That lingers a lot longer than you just telling me the truth. Because I can always go back and say, well, at least he told me the truth. I can't go back and do that if you lied. Because if you lie once, twice, thrice, I will struggle to believe you even when you are telling the truth. So I think it just behooves everyone to just go ahead and tell the truth from the onset, no matter how painful it is. Because if you decide, like, hypothetically, I want to be in a relationship with somebody else, she could handle that way more, I promise you, than finding out that you're in a relationship with somebody else. Shit balls deep in a relationship with somebody else. That's worse. As a person who's experienced it, that's way fucking worse. I would rather you, the person I care for, to tell me to my face than to have someone I know tell me because they found it on Facebook, or to have somebody I know tell me because of blah, blah, blah. Just say it. Just say it. Your consolation prize is the fact that you said it and that she can always go back to, at least he told me the truth. So that's just my feeling on it. I feel like one thing that I've been working on, especially, during this birthday month, interacting with different people and things, is just like, be honest about if you know, because see, the problem is too, a lot of people don't know where they are emotionally. And so they don't really know how to be honest because they don't know what's true or not. But if you just say, you know what, I'm tired of doing this. I love you, but I don't want to do this anymore. And because omission is still a lie. And I'm seeing someone else. You don't have to give her any of the gory details. And if she does ask and she says, I'd like to know more, I would prefer not to tell you because I don't want to hurt you more. Communication. So anyway, this is personal. Moving on. So finally, Shanann, she sells her home in North Carolina. She sells it for $349,000. So she only made about $40K on the property. The buyer even said she left the furniture. That's how quick she was trying to get the fuck out of Dodge. Now, she finally makes it to Colorado, and they're both living with their friends. Now, and they're trying to find a new home. So Shanann would find a work as a salesperson at Ford. And obviously she was a rock star salesperson. She seems to be a rock star in every fucking job she gets. She sold more cars than anyone, which really surprised people. The more new friends people they started to have and they started to get to know them, they soon realized that she was the flamboyant car saleswoman, and she's married to this weird ass mechanic that barely speaks. So he seemed comfortable around his friends, the people he was comfortable with, which were the people that they were living with. But around new people, he was ridiculously shy. One person even said, quote, "You almost felt sorry for him in public settings. Just a total introvert. Shy, almost awkward socially, but kind and soft." I mean, she would handle all of the introductions and then send him off on some errand to keep him occupied like he was a fucking toddler, because she probably is thinking like, he gonna embarrass me if he stick around. You know, I've been in that situation. By October, they closed on a property. They spent $390,000 on it, which was still being built, mind you. She posted, quote, "Not even married yet," Shanann posted on Instagram. And at 12:30 p.m., Christopher Watts will be signing his life away to build our new home in Colorado. Super stoked. By the time the house was done, they had themselves a 4,177, so 4,177 square foot, 2-story home with 5 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, granite countertops, and huge basement. I'm a failure. So it's important to mention that Shanann was one of those oversharing people on social media. Kind of same, kind of not. But she had to post a picture for everything, which is like not weird because they're millennials. I mean, we're the same age. We grew up with that shit. You're going to hear a lot about social media because she posted a lot on social media. She would start her daily countdown at her wedding, to her wedding, and give daily updates on how it was going. Now, I want to say this too. The social media thing is very important to mention because this is actually one of the first murders where, like, in the beginning, the dynamic of the relationship was put on social media, and not in a negative way, but in a fake way. This is one of those cases that truly breaks down how fucking fake social media truly is. Nobody posts the gnarly shit. You know what I mean? Like, nobody posts for real. Like, I mean, and some people do, but I mean, like, the majority of people are not posting when they can't pay their bills. They're posting when shit is good. And so that's kind of how she was. She put on a social media persona that people would think, oh my God, this girl is living the absolute American dream. Her husband's great. Her house is great. Her family's great. She's going to parties. She's got the job. He's got the job. Everything's together. So she's kind of like that quintessential catfish, where like she was showing the world the ins and outs of her life. So when things went bad, investigators were able to truly go back and see how she was acting. And, you know, because obviously, even with social media, it kind of helped them also nail what was happening, because there would be moments where she didn't post. So that we'll talk about that more so in part 2, but that's going to keep coming up. Her social media posts. She posts a lot on social media, to a fault. And it was kind of annoying. But anyway, so after the party, it was clear that the in-laws were not coming to the wedding. Even his sister Jamie would try to make amends for the sake of attending the wedding, but nothing worked. Shanann made it very clear that Chris's side was not invited, and he agreed. Their friend said, quote, "Chris worshiped the ground she walked on," said Jenna, which was Gianna or Gianna or Gina. I don't know, but that's one of the people that she lived with, and very heavily doted on her. He did whatever she asked and then some, but seemed very happy in that role. Quote, "My husband and I would joke because it's not our dynamic. He wouldn't be happy if I was telling him what to do. But Chris not only seemed happy, but he would seem to thrive in that role of having the domineering spouse and loved it. And so they always had the perfect dynamic. It worked for them." On November 3rd, 2012, they married in Charlotte. They had a Pittsburgh Steelers themed cake, which was their favorite baseball team. She invited her friends and family, even though a few couldn't make it because of Hurricane Sandy. The only members of Chris's family in attendance was his grandma, his mama, and he was very close to her. And at the wedding, Chris was letting the fuck loose. He was dancing like a stripper from Magic Mike. He didn't care about looking stupid, which was also extremely unusual for him because he was shy. Now, fast forward, by winter, they were already trying to get pregnant, even though doctors said that she wouldn't be able to do it with her lupus, which we now know is not true all the time. For Chris's birthday, Shanann got him a supercharger for his Mustang, and that weekend they got pregnant with their first Bella. By July, Shanann was 3 months pregnant and found out that Bella was to be due by Christmas 2013. Chris called his parents and let them know the news, and finally Shanann allowed his family back in. Here she is sharing this experience with everyone on Instagram. And then she's not wanting to share with her in-laws. I mean, to me, that would be the straw. Eventually, Shanann would start a new job at a pediatric call center in Chicago's hospital, in a children's hospital, while Chris stayed at Ford. Now, unfortunately, he was starting to develop carpal tunnel, but none of that kept Shanann from spending lots and lots of money. I mean, they had to have top of the line everything. They were starting to rack up a lot of credit card debt. Co-workers of Chris would see him hand her his check when he got paid, so it was clear that she handled all the finances. Considering her tastes, I can't imagine paying a $2,800 mortgage with $18 per hour plus whatever Chris is making, which, given his position, he was probably making good money. And I don't think that they could really afford too much of what they were doing without credit. Now, throw in an overpriced wedding, which I guess could have been paid for by her parents, a new baby that needs the top of the line shit, plus just regular keeping up with the Joneses ass bullshit. They kind of in trouble. I mean, sprinkle some social media on top and you just got a whole motherfucking shitstorm. Because I'm going to tell you what, keeping up with the Joneses is a different type of experience than what we grew up with in the 90s and early 2000s. Because there was a lot of shit that we did not know motherfuckers had. And now you know what everybody got. You'd be like, wow, I didn't know I was that poor. That's why you got teenagers who ready to be millionaires, and it's like, yeah, okay. But anyway, right before that Christmas, they would buy a brand new Ford Explorer, and the note on that was $588 per month. By the following June, they would have to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy because they owe $450,000 in credit cards, medical bills, and student loans. Now, in their filing, they had less than $10 between them in savings and $860 in checking. And most of their debt was considered debt like consumer debt, like department store cards and shit, which we know the motherfucking interest rate in department store cards are no fucking joke. They suck. So their combined income was only $90,000, which was lower than the previous year of $147,000. Needless to say, they were broke as fuck. And in August of 2015, they were discharged. They did their little counseling. They got their discharge papers. But his father had no idea that they were bankrupt. He was like, they were making decent money, but the problem was that Shanann wanted the profile. She wanted the best of everything. So they make it to their first year married, and Shanann throws a baby shower. And on December 17th, 2013, Bella Marie was born in Lafayette, Colorado. Every Christmas, every moment was posted on fucking social media. They gave off the impression that everything was wonderful. Finally, Chris's parents fly into Colorado to visit their grandchild and would make a point to visit twice a year. Now, with these visits, Cindy started to notice that Chris seemed more anxious. Quote, and when she needed something, he would run. He wouldn't walk. He would run. She said it was very odd and he just seemed nervous. No mother would want their child to submit to anyone like that. Running, my nigga? No. So Cindy just didn't like her. And she said, quote, I tried to love her. At times I did love her, but then it just started all over again because she always found something wrong with us. So that May, Chris left Ford to work for an oil field contractor, which paid more. His job was to test the oil wells and do general maintenance work. Now that work was better for his carpal tunnel. So Shanann was like still working at the children's hospital. And she also started working at the Children's Place. If you remember that place, that was a children's clothing store. What did that used to be called? Children's Place used to be called something back in the day. I don't remember. Whatever. Maybe it was always called Children's Place. I could never fit the clothes there, even as a child. I'm high as Cootie Brown because that's not that funny, but that was funny. So she started doing sales for a jewelry company, and she was doing sales for a coffee company. Shanann was not lazy. She was far from fucking lazy. You can't say that this woman was lazy. She was nowhere near lazy. Now, by July, Shanann's brother Frankie was considering moving to Colorado, and he decided to stay for an extra vacation to spend time with Bella. So Frankie soon realized that Chris was subservient as hell, and he seemed a bit obsessed. One friend would even say, quote, I was honestly surprised because of their personalities, he said. Chris is very non-combative, non-confrontational, and he's perfect for her because she likes to run things. Now, by January 2015, Shanann was pregnant again at 31 years old with Celeste. Of course, she announced it on social media, 12 and counting, which I'm assuming is 12 weeks. And at this point, Bella is only 15 months. So Frankie and Sandy moved to Colorado, which was convenient for Shanann because her mom could help her with the baby and, with her pregnancy. According to Chris, Shanann and her mother argued a lot. So them living under one roof with her parents, he was like, yo, this is stressful as fuck. He and Shanann started having their own issues because Chris was overwhelmed. I mean, he felt like he had to walk on eggshells because Shanann would be pissed all the time because her mother started to interfere with how Shanann raised Bella, which is a big issue with moms and their daughters becoming mothers. That becomes a big issue because mothers always feel like their new child is doing some shit wrong. You don't know what the fuck you doing. You don't know what you're doing. Why are you doing that? You gonna kill the baby? You know what I mean? Like mothers are like that because they raised kids already and they trying to teach you how to raise kids. So there's that. Now, on July 17th, Shanann gave birth to Celeste in Denver. Celeste was unfortunately sickly. She had to be put on steroids to help her breathe. The following year, Shanann signed up as a promoter for Thrive, which was a lifestyle supplement. And Shanann was a fucking beast at it. At this time, Chris was out of shape. He was 245 pounds. And she basically started to use him as a guinea pig. She would promote him incessantly, and she would become a huge seller for the company, always receiving gifts, trips, cars. I mean, she would eventually climb the Thrive ladder. By April, Shanann had advanced to 12K VIP to qualify for Lavelle's, who is the owner, VIP Auto Club, earning $800 a month toward a new car. She chose a white Lexus and persuaded Chris to trade in his beloved Ford Mustang. His father was appalled. He loved his Mustang, said Ronnie, and they ended up trading that in. She was really doing well, slinging this Thrive shit and using Chris as the poster child, posting constantly about his progress on the supplement on Facebook, and she was also taking it. She would win trips because of her sales numbers. They went to New Orleans, Las Vegas, Puerto Vallarta, Toronto, Punta Cana. I mean, Chris was not only drinking the supplement, but he was also rocking the DFT patches, which were supposed to increase energy. DFT patches are the dermafusion technology patches. They're sold by Thrive. But Chris's health was really turning around. He was fit and he was fucking fabulous. He was working out all the time. He ended up losing like 60 pounds. He joined the gym to help tone his body a bit more. He was feeling himself. Quote, she tried to pump everybody full of Thrive, said Cindy. She got my husband on it. And she said, I took it and it made me jittery. So she said, we did it for Chris. And probably because it has green tea extract in it. I did look it up because, you know, your girl's always trying to maintain her girlish figure. Fuck. So, meanwhile, the in-laws are pretty much hating each other still. Obviously, Celeste was just born. She got this new Thrive job. They doing all types of shit. They doing all types of traveling. That January, they flew to Punta Cana, and the in-laws were back in Colorado, staying in the same house with the kids. Now, this sounds like a recipe for fucking disaster because Cindy and Ronnie were upstairs, and Frank and Sandy were in the basement. And Sandy claimed that they were not allowed to see the grandkids because Cindy would take them upstairs and keep them upstairs. Weeks later, Sandy and Frank moved back to North Carolina. Now, apparently they only moved back to North Carolina because their son, Frankie, was having financial issues and was like becoming like a little behind on his bills. So they didn't necessarily say they left because of Cindy and Ronnie, but you know, that probably helped. They were like, fuck this shit. This is dumb. I was like, I don't want to deal with these motherfuckers no more. Now, Cindy didn't really like Chris didn't really like all of the attention. He hated being out there on social media and only did it to help his wife's business. But as Shanann called all the shots in the marriage, he never complained and went along with her wishes. Now, what happens in moments like this? Resentment builds. His quiet nature would start to create chaos within him. So much so that neighbors would claim to hear Shanann and Chris screaming at each other, arguing. And then when they were together publicly, they'd be loving and affectionate and shit. See, this is the problem when you put on fake fucking appearances. Under the surface, motherfuckers are bubbling. You know what I mean? That true, authentic self is yearning to be free. That's why when certain people engage in shit and it liberates them and then they feel comfortable doing that thing, they don't know what the fuck to do with themselves. Because then at the end of the day, it's like, I feel like a totally different person. Yeah, motherfucker, because you've been wearing masks for years. You know? I mean, you're lying. That's lying too, except this time you're lying to yourself. If you at the end of the day are in this marriage with this woman and you hate everything about her posting your progress and all this other shit on social media, then fucking tell that bitch to stop doing it. Have that conversation. But I know, especially with his personality type, he really struggles with communicating anything, let alone his feelings. So I think that a lot of this, I did watch in a documentary where they said the thing about people who are psychopaths too is sometimes they just assimilate to the behaviors that are around them. Like they're malleable in that way. They're flexible in that way. If I'm in a group of people and I see that all these different behavioral patterns, this is the one that people respond to the best, this is the one that people respond to the worst, then I'm going to do the thing that helps me fit in. And so they mold their personality to fit into that. But see, my thing is the problem with the human psyche is who you actually is always going to make an appearance. Whether you want that person to appear or not, whether you put drugs in your system, whether you have been indoctrinated and brainwashed into believing that you are something else, the true you will always fucking surface. It was at Celeste's first birthday when Shanann met this girl by the name of Nicole Atkinson. Now, remember her name because she plays an important role in this saga. Nicole was introduced by Shanann by Sandy, Shanann's mom, and they became good friends, and Nicole was even convinced to use Thrive and to work for Thrive. Now, Shanann was doing pretty well health-wise, but Bella and Celeste were sickly, and both were in and out of the hospital with different ailments. Bella would be admitted for pneumonia, and she had to have eye surgery for a clogged tear duct. She even had food allergies. One time Celeste ate 2 cashews and had a severe allergic reaction and broke out into hives. So she was prescribed an EpiPen, Zofran, and prednisone to help with the reaction, which was anaphylactic. So Bella had to be rushed to the hospital 3 days after her, hold on, my motherfucking music going off and shit. She has to be rushed to the hospital 3 days after her birthday because she had an ear infection and she started vomiting all over the place. And at the end of her post, she quoted, this is what she said: "I have a DFT Ultra and Reg DFT to keep me healthy and strong for my sick kiddos." This girl did not have an off button. She quit the job at the hospital and started solely working for Thrive. So here you are, you in the motherfucking hospital with your daughter and you still promoting Thrive. She used every opportunity to come the fuck up. Now, Chris had moved on to the Anadarko Petroleum Corporation, one of Colorado's biggest oil drillers. His job was to maintain the oil sites. At this point, Chris had been there for 16 months. He was known as Rain Man because of his photographic memory and the fact that he was so quiet. But he was also relied on a lot. People knew he was very, very smart. And he was also talking about his kids a lot at work. They just knew that he was just like an all-around good dude. Now, he knew everything, and he was training other co-workers on the job. After Shanann's departure from the Chicago hospital, why do I keep saying Chicago? Children's Hospital, Firestone had an explosion that killed 2 workers, and that forced Anadarko to shut down from the oil wells. Now, whether or not he got paid, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming a shutdown, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how that industry worked. At that time, they were hemorrhaging cash, though, and they would enroll Celeste and Bella in a school that cost $25,000 per year for both girls. Now, Shanann would later have to have spinal surgery that cost the family another $25,000. Plus, she no longer could take Thrive while she was in recovery. Not to mention the hospital bills accumulated by the children. Now, they were living paycheck to paycheck by spring of 2018. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage and had to dip into their 401k. They borrowed $10,000 from their 401k. They were also behind on their HOAs and were facing civil action. Now, nevertheless, Shanann posted pictures at the Audi dealership where she was using her Thrive car allowance of $1,600 per month on a new Audi. Quote, "I think I'm an Audi girl because they're awesome." She was stressed out, according to Chris. He said, quote, "That's why we took 401k loan out. That was the max we could do and just put it all towards the house and getting caught up." At this time, Shanann started telling folks that they're trying to get pregnant again. Why? I don't know. Apparently, it was Chris's idea, though. And on May 29th, she told Chris that she was pregnant. And of course, she put it on Facebook. Now, let's get messy, shall we? Because we got 12 fucking minutes. It is at Anadarko that Chris meets Nicole Kessinger. She was a health and safety worker, and apparently she was the subject of a lot of talk amongst her male coworkers and would turn heads in the break room every morning. Now, Chris noticed her, but he never really said anything. And even though all the others were going goo goo gaga for her, she claimed she didn't really pay attention to any of them. But the police records would later show that she searched him online that evening, and a month later, she searched Shanann. Now, Shanann is pregnant by May, and Chris is pretending to be happy, even apparently wanting a third child. But while at work, asking people if they want one of his, quote, Anthony Brown, his coworker, asked Chris how he felt about becoming a father again. Chris seemed totally unemotional and asked Brown, one whose wife had recently had several miscarriages, if he wanted another child. I was honest, said Brown. I told him, I don't think it's in our cards. Then Chris looked at him and said, well, do you want one? He was implying that I could have one of his, Brown later told detectives. I thought he was joking, but that was kind of a weird comment. On June 1st, Chris is having an issue at work with one of his apps controlling the gas sensors in the field. He goes to Nikki Kessinger for help, and this is the first time they had ever spoken. After that, they started to run into each other more often. On June 12th, they had their first conversation. A few hours later, Kessinger sent him an email. Chris, thank you for being honest with me this morning. Truthfulness is so underrated in our culture. I'm pretty sure that this is Spanish. Saludo cordiales, Nikki. An hour later, Chris replied, Nikki, I'm a straightforward guy. Lying just complicates things. I think you're absolutely stunning. And from what I've learned about you so far, you seem like an amazing person. I hope to continue to get to know you better since we have a lot in common. It is always nice to find people you can relate to, Kessinger replied. I enjoy talking to you as well. I feel understood. I'm looking for someone to build a beautiful life with. Seems so simple, but it is unrealistic at times. Build something similar to what you have with your wife and those cute little girls. I do believe in karma, so out of respect for myself, you and your family, I think it's best if we keep that friendship at work. Less than 2 hours later, Watts replied, yes, a beautiful life is something that is hard to find in this world since people always seem to have an agenda for everything. I do believe in karma, so I agree with that as well. Any conversations we have will stay between us. No need to worry there. He then gave her his work number in case she needed to get a hold of him in the field, saying the emergency service can sometimes be spotty out there. I have an early meeting, he told her, and then I'm working for a construction crew on various sites all day. So if I don't see you tomorrow, I hope you have an amazing day. That was the last message that they would exchange using the Anna Darko email. By June 17, he was adding Nikki to his contacts because he knew Shanann stayed in his phone. So he put her in his work contacts. Now, Shanann was planning to go to North Carolina to visit her family his family for the entire summer, which was 6 weeks. So he held tight contacting Nikki. So he didn't even start with that. He put her on the back burner and would only contact her on his work phone. Eventually, Nikki would tell him, yeah, we should probably stop doing this. He started to feel really comfortable with Nikki, telling her all of his personal life and even planning to link up with her. He returned from his trip to San Diego with Shanann, and he was like, yo, when I come back, maybe we can link up or something. So on June 21st, Shanann's dad noticed that Chris started to be a little more stern with the girls, yelling at the kids at times when he didn't do that before. The next day, Chris added Nikki to his contacts as APC, Health, Safety, Environmental. By June 26th, they flew back to Colorado and learned they were being sued by the association for $1,500. That afternoon, he drove Shanann and her father to the airport with the kids. When he got back home, he immediately called Nikki to arrange their meeting. They met at a nature preserve near her house, and they would set the terms because, of course, he's married. So Nikki asked when he decided to separate from his wife. He said late March and that they no longer slept together. Not true. He told her they were putting the house up for sale and figuring out the finances. Also not fucking true. And he shared that Shanann was bossy, but, they never really argued. That's probably not true. He told her things started going bad 2 years ago and that he tried to talk to her. He hadn't. And they went back to Kessinger's house. Chris brought the rubbers. One box was open. Nikki questioned this, and Chris said Shanann didn't like to get messy. So the next day, they had sex again. She texted him, quote, "You think you're the only one addicted right now? I'm so hooked on you." Chris finally felt as if he could be himself with Nikki for the first time in his life. La 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 la. I don't know what the fuck that was. I'm tipsy. That's the end. And I hope you missed me oh so much, because I missed you oh so much. I'm so hooked on you. You think you're the only one addicted right now? God, I fucking love doing this shit. Okay, so I'm gonna release part 2 next week. Hope you enjoyed part 1. We spent some time together. I'm tipsy and I had an edible, which means I'm gonna sleep very well after I wash my face. So I love you, mean it. I will see you next week. Bye.